जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद. हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Thank you all for joining. We are continuing our discussion on the topic of how mind works. So in the previous session I discussed that this particular subject matter I came across while reading this book, Art of Teaching, by His Grace Bhurijana Prabhu. He is a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and he was requested by Srila Prabhupada to actually design and architect the courses or systematic study in ISKCON. So he started a course called as Bhakti Shastri. So I came across this topic here, and then in this book he is talking about learning theory, and this learning theory is about the conception of how mind works. And this learning theory Prabhu came across in the teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He is our predecessor Acharya, and in Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his books Sri Chaitanya Shikshamrita, in chapter 5 he discusses how the mind works actually. So he reveals the inner working of the mind, and that's how whatever we are discussing here is based on the teachings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So we covered actually or we understood about the first 3 stages among the 6 stages in learning. So we discussed that there's a faculty of senses, and then there are like 4 stages in which this is the faculty of mind, and the final faculty is the faculty of intelligence. So this is how any information which we receive is processed by the body. So stimulus from outside world is received by the faculty of the senses through the senses, which is these 5 senses: eyes, ears, tongue, skin and nose. So they receive the information, and after receiving the information it goes into the mind through a first faculty of mind, which is called as the inner sense, which is basically the nervous system. And nervous system carries those stimulus from the outside world, and then it stores in the mind, in the first faculty of the mind. So this is where the inner sense is capturing all the information and it is storing in the first faculty of mind. And then the storage happens, and that is the second faculty of mind, where the storage of the information happens. And if our thoughts are not there, or if we receive the information but if our mind is not focused on those stimulus which is coming in, then the information will be not properly received, it will be lost. So then comes the third faculty of mind. So today we are going to start discussing the analysis, how the analysis happens in the mind. So first level of analysis happens, and this is a very, very quick analysis, and the purpose of this analysis is for storing information for life-saving purpose. For example, if we are going through a road, and if some vehicle comes in, so we don't have time to make decision it has to happen very quickly, so immediately our reflexes work. So that kind of information is actually processed through this first level. So here Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, by the third faculty these are united and separated, resulting in imagination and contemplation. So the analysis, as I said, is done 3 times. So first level of analysis is done by the third faculty, and here all the preliminary analysis are happening, and these are basically conditional reflexes, and all the life-saving information is stored This is also based on the prior experience. So if we have not encountered something in the past, then this analysis will not happen. So based on our past experience, we think about it and we store it in the first storage place where the access of that information can happen very quickly. So it can be either based on our own experience or can be based on something which we have heard from somebody. And these are like very simple reactions. There's no complication. It doesn't go through a lot of thought process. It's like good, bad, dangerous, fearful, poisonous. And the example can be given like if we see a snake crossing, then immediately our mind tells us that it is dangerous, so be away from it. Similarly, while crossing the road, if we see some objects of some cars or vehicles coming, immediately we back out from that whatever position we are, or we run towards the other side. So this kind of reflexes are actually processed by the third faculty. Or if we again go to this diagram, it is this preliminary analysis portion of the mind that does it. Then a deeper level of analysis happens, and that is for identification purpose. So here the things are identified and connections are made from whatever has been identification has been done. So that is the fourth faculty of mind, and here deeper analysis and identification happens. So the fourth faculty determines the quality of the feelings and minimizes their number to 1 or certain numbers, and then divides again to increase their number. So what does it mean? What it means is, like, let's say we see a color. Let's say we see a color blue. So as soon as we see a color blue, then that information is going through our senses to the mind, and then the identification happens on the basis of the past experience. Like in the past we must have seen that blue color. So the mind actually shows different tags. It holds different tags like this. There are people holding tags. So what it means is the comparison is done against those tags. So let's say we see blue color, then mind may say, oh, is it water? Then it will reject, no, it is not water. It will say, is it a chair? It will say, no, it's not a chair. Is it a stone? Is it a mountain? So different kind of tags will be, or board will be held to compare whatever we have seen, and then finally a match will be found that okay, this is a blue color. So that identification happens here. So deeper analysis and identification based on the desires of the mind. Yeah? And same objects, we may see, but people identify the same objects as different things based on their desires. And it's also based on the intelligence and the prior experience based on which we have categorized. We hold this placard kind of thing. So again, it is pointed out here that cards are held up against the stimulus, comparison is done, then either acceptance or match found is there, or rejection, match not found happens. So sometimes in our experience we see something and we are not able to recall the name of that particular object, what we have seen, because it is looking through the memory but it's unable to figure out what it is. And then finally one identification match will be found, and that's why it is said lesson to one and lesson to one. So one identification. So when we see a blue color, then the mind figures out, okay, through this matching process, that okay, this is a blue color. And then after that blue color has been identified, then there is a broaden. So it is now, it will be categorized, or it will be joined with other information which is there inside the mind. For example, if we see blue color, then we may connect that blue color with some blue notebook, or some t-shirt or a wall paint, or maybe when we see Krishna, then we connect that blue color with Krishna. So this is kind of broadening that whatever identified object has been, now we broaden it, or further divide into many. So first identification happens, and then we divide that particular or connect that particular object with many other things. And then there are unlimited concepts in the mind, like blue color, kartal, wonderful, all emotions are also actually categorized. So birds, something is clean, something is dirty, this is some chair, or some tables, or mridanga, or stone. So they have put some examples here, like house, water, car, red color, iPad, cell phone. So there are unlimited concepts. Similarly, some fragrance, like rose fragrance, or fragrance of some jasmine flower. So all this can be stored in the mind. Basically, mind is capable of storing unlimited concepts, and then once this identification happens, and then the broadening of the things happen, then the next phase comes in, which is more contemplation. So that is the next faculty is the faculty of intelligence. So again, going to our base diagram, where first is the faculty of sense, then information goes to the mind, which is the first faculty of mind, and that is goes through the inner sense, and then it is stored, which is the second faculty of mind, stored in the memory. And then a preliminary analysis happens, where all life-saving information is stored, so that no further processing is required. And then the next is the deeper analysis, which is deeper identification, or identification of the objects, and then broadening of the objects, or connecting that same object with many other things, right? So example again can be, if we see a red color, then with that red color can be many things connected: a red color house, a red color car, a red color pen, or a red color vegetable, or anything. So those things are kind of connected with each other. So it's a very complex system. As we see, it's not very straightforward how the mind processes. Then finally the deeper analysis and reasoning happens. So what that is the faculty of intelligence. So what it means, let's go through the details. So by the fifth faculty, a common meeting is obtained from all these assorted feelings, right? This is called as reasoning. So when we see something, then we start reasoning about that particular object, and that is called as contemplation. And in the process of contemplation, we connect whatever we have seen with other things, right? With our prior experiences. So what work is to be done, what work is not to be done is determined. So based on the object, based on our prior experience, then anything further needs to be done is analyzed. So let's read what is coming under this. So deeper analysis and for the meaning is stored in deeper form within the memory for practical and theoretical reasoning. So this all goes on, in the mind. But for this, one has to put some thoughts and intelligence. Basically, we have to process it. So that is the contemplation work. So like when we hear something or when we read something, then based on our past experience, we connect with whatever we have heard with the new information which we are receiving. So this is called as understanding or understood deeply, which can be used for later purpose. For example, cold water or static electricity. So I'll just give this example of cold water. So let's say, somebody offers us a cold water first time, and we have never experienced it, and we drink the water. So when we drink the water, and let's assume that we have a toothache. So when we drink the water, as soon as we drink cold water, our toothache increases. We get a lot of pain in the tooth. So now that has been stored in the mind that cold water causes toothache. And next time, if somebody offers us a cold water, we will not take it because we had a prior bad experience with the cold water. Similarly, with the static electricity. Let's say, if our body touches something and that generates, or some clothes, particular kind of clothes we wear, and that has a tendency to generate static electricity in our physical body. So as soon as we see those kind of clothes or those kind of material, we immediately reject it because we know that by wearing this cloth, I am getting a static current. So those kind of information will be stored. And as we get more and more experience, newer information would be added to this. Something which is connect. So the point is, as we receive more information, we connect it to the already existing information which we have. Something which is already known to us. Right? So, for example, if somebody sees enters the room and then they switch on the light, and somebody who has a prior experience of snake, or might have heard about the snake, then what happens? Let's say that person has switched on the light, and if there's a rope which is lying down, as soon as the person sees that rope, the person connects it with the snake, and they get frightened, right? But after seeing properly, then they identify, oh, it's not a snake, it's a rope, right? So then there are thoughts that come in the mind that, oh, how did I get confused, and then the person will think probably that, oh, I should remove this from this area, the rope from this area, otherwise somebody who will come later will also go through the same experience, or they also might get frightened. So let me tell it to my friends. So that's why I kept this example here, that we think through our mind and then we process it, and then we deeply analyze what is going on. Not everybody does that, but somebody who contemplates a lot will go through this process. And this is the way the reasoning happens. And then things are stored for practical application for the future purposes, right? So, and when we store the information, then each of us will store it based on our experience. Like, for example, deities. So when we go to temple, we see the deities. So with the deities, let's say I am in Seattle. So in Seattle, we have Sri Radha Nilmada deities. So for me, when the word deity is used, I will in the picture of in my mind's picture, it will be Sri Radha Nilmada, right? But somebody who is from Vrindavan and they are always seeing Krishna Balram deities. So when a word deity is used, for them it's Krishna Balram. And then somebody from Chicago could be having this Kishore Kishori deities. And with the deities, again, the other extension of that that picture could be like garland, or altar or arti. So they can connect with that word deity many things, unlimited things, in fact. And then when you hear the word, let's say Krishna Balram, so Krishna Balram is in Vrindavan, so immediately the word Vrindavan comes in the mind. And when the word Vrindavan comes in the mind, then immediately the next word could be connected with Vrindavan, which is Yamuna. Or if you have bad experience of monkeys at Vrindavan, then you think of monkeys. And then when we go to Vrindavan, we do some shopping. So there could be a conception of Loi Bazaar, where the shopping market is, or 24 hours kirtan. So if you see like that, with all these objects which are stored in the mind, there are unlimited other objects stored like this. The point is that when we learn something new, then we should be able to connect it with the previous things which we have a map of such things in our mind. This is the technique that we need to learn while we have understood the conception of how the mind works. So this will help us to retain what we have studied. That's why I went through all this these 2 sessions of how mind works. Um, and the important thing is whatever we learn, and there'll be a lot of new concepts which you will learn, and I'll try to give as much examples as possible. But if there are connections already in your mind, and if you hear from me something and you connect it to whatever is the existing um, chain of thoughts you have, then it's easy for you to remember or recollect next time. So this is a purpose of understanding why or how the mind works, and then we can utilize this understanding of how it works to our advantage of learning Shastra. So with this, then we go to the next section, which is why people don't learn. So there are generally 3 reasons. There could be more, but these are the 3 main reasons. People don't learn because the mind is wandering. Mind is not at what it's doing. If let's say you are hearing, and if your mind is wandering here and there, then the stimulus, what is coming, the sound which is coming, or whatever I'm presenting here, you don't see it actually, because the mind is somewhere else. So you don't catch it. The information is not going in, hence it is not stored, not held. If it is not held, then it will not be processed. So again, going to those 6 stages, in order to learn, as we have seen, in order to learn, one has to go through these 6 stages. But if the storage doesn't happen, then it stops here. And then the person who is speaking the next subject matter. And if he's speaking very fast, generally that happens in the recorded classes, it goes very quickly. So then you miss a point, then what happens is the subject matter becomes dull. Then there is no interest in learning. And then the further processing won't happen. So one have to be really careful. If you really want to learn, study, then you have to focus our energy. You cannot do multitask while studying. You just take some time, even if it is 10 minutes, then 10 minutes you focus on what you are studying. This is the important thing to learn from this discussion about mind. Secondly, if the mind is agitated, agitated means it is, if we have excessive sense gratification, if we are excessively enjoying things, means mind is always looking for something new, like what this, nowadays people have this social media accounts and all the stuff. It's not bad, I'm not against those, but what it does, it gives you instant sense gratification. It gives our mind instant happiness. And then there are short messages, so we get a instant kick in our mind, happiness, and the dopamine is released and we get instant happiness. And so focusing on something which is philosophical, which requires the deep contemplation, that doesn't happen generally. So if the mind is agitated either through excessive sense gratification, or if the mind is stressed due to some work thing or some whatever situations in the life, then the mind is unable to focus. The mind is wandering here and there. And when the mind is wandering here and there, then the learning doesn't happen. Second reason why people don't learn is whatever they are hearing is based on, there is a lack of prerequisite knowledge. Like for example, there are 2 sessions in this how mind works class. But if you just start with the second session, and if you have missed the first session, then what will happen? Whatever I have discussed in the first session, you don't have that knowledge. And because we don't have that knowledge, we cannot connect with what the speaker is speaking. The connection doesn't happen. So we have to connect with something which is already known to us. This is our responsibility. And if it is not known, then we somehow gather that information. Right? Like for example, if we are reading Bhagavad Gita and we don't know about Mahabharata, what is the stories of the Mahabharata, the histories and what has happened in the Mahabharata, And then suddenly when we start the Bhagavad Gita with chapter 1 verse 1, and it starts with Dhritarashtra Vacha. Dhritarashtra is saying, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre, what is going on in the battlefield. So if we don't have the prior information that how this people came to fight with each other, how the two cousins, two sides of the same family came to fight with each other, then the prerequisite knowledge is not there, so understanding will not be proper. So that's why, due to lack of prerequisite knowledge, one loses the connection, and they don't and the connection of the subject matter doesn't happen, right? So that's why if you want to learn, then you have to learn in sequence, and that's what we are trying to do in these sessions. We are trying to go in sequence, one by one. And if something is missing, you have seen, I cover even from outside, which I feel that it may help in knowing the things properly. Now, the responsibility of the hearer, somebody who is hearing it, is, and the speaker also, should try to connect with such things, with such examples, contemporary examples that will make sense. So it must be connected to something which is already known. If things are not known and we try to learn something new, like if somebody tries to learn a Chinese language, then it is very difficult. If you go to some session and a speaker is speaking some language which is unknown to us, because we have a lack of prerequisite knowledge, then we won't understand anything. So that's why we need to connect with something which is already known. And the third reason which people don't know or people don't learn is because the topic is irrelevant. We are not interested in the topic, so it doesn't concern me. So why should I even spend my time learning it, right? So that's the topic is non-relevant. So these are some of the reasons why we don't learn. And then finally, how the mind and the consciousness, they work together. So this is the final topic of discussion for how mind works, is the relationship with mind and consciousness. So we learned in the introduction that consciousness is the symptom of soul. So consciousness is nothing but awareness. So awareness is a part of soul. Soul is alive, and it is aware of what is going on in the body and around itself. So that is the consciousness. Now here I have said that consciousness is the energy of the soul. So soul is conscious. So wherever there is consciousness, it means that there is a presence of soul. So we'll try to understand this, how the mind and consciousness, they work together through the example. So let's assume that there is a cricket match going on. So the cricket match is going on in some stadium, and then there are the cameramen, they capture what is going on in the field, and that information is relayed through the TV station, and then the TV station is actually presenting this, and through the signals it comes into our TV. So and people over here are watching this TV, right? So this is what happens. Now, what is the role of mind and what is the role of the consciousness? So let's understand that. So these events can be, or the cricket match can be considered as some event that is happening outside our body. So those are events happening outside the body, and then that event that is happening outside our body is captured through our senses, which is this compared to this camera, and there are sound is like compared to our camera, can be compared to our eyes, the sound can be compared to our ears, that will capture those senses will actually capture that information, and then that is all impression, all the sensory impression is integrated before giving it to the mind. So they all will be integrated together, and then it goes to the mind. So the mind can be compared to like a TV, right? And these people who are watching can be compared to soul, right? So mind and soul, these are two different things. So these people are actually, there is only one soul in the body. Of course, there are millions of trillions of souls, but there is a one main soul in the body, and that is us. And in the mind, our mind, which is there inside the body, right? So in that mind, we see what is going outside the world, and that can be compared with this TV. And when they receive this information, when the soul receives that integrated information, so let's here to say the mind presents the integrated information for the perception of the soul. So mind collects all the information and it is presented to the soul. And then depending on soul's consciousness, the soul will either guess happiness or distress. How is that? Because let's say there are two teams over here, and the person who is sitting here is from India, and the match is going on between India and Pakistan, the cricket match. And when this guy, the batsman, he hits 4 or 6, because this person is Indian, he's identifying himself as Indian, and the batsman is also Indian, so he gets happy. But if so this is happiness and different emotions the soul will experience based on the emotions, based on the focus of consciousness on the mind and identification. So it will focus its consciousness on the mind, and because the soul identifies himself as Indian, then if this guy is hitting a 4 run, then this person, the soul, becomes happy. But if the person gets out, then the soul becomes sad. But the soul has got nothing to do with what is going on in the field, because soul is a different person, or the person is which is here is completely different from what is going on outside in this world. Okay, so with this I will stop this session, and then we'll continue in the next session with how to study Bhagavad Gita. Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Bol.